Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Sarasvati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Samasta Janakalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Satgurum Brahmavidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Bande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. All right, so today we're going to chant from verse 23. So if you can turn your books to page 23, we'll go ahead and we'll start from there. Okay, and we'll chant together. We will chant 23 to 29. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapaha, na shoshayati marutaha, achedyoyamadahyohyam, akledyo shoshya evacha, nityas sarvagatasthānuhu, Achaloyam sanatanaha avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmadevam viditvainam nanushochitum arhasi. Atha chainam nityajatam nityam va manyase mritam Tathapi tvam mahabaho naivam shochitumarhasi jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmadapariharyarthe natvam shochitumarhasi avyaktadini bhutani Vyaktamadhyani bharata avyaktanidhananyeva tatra ka paridevana ascharyavat pashyati kashchidenam ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha ascharyavat chainamanya shrunoti Shrutvaapyenam vedana chaiva kashchita. Okay, so last week we have just touched up to verse 29, just the beginning of 29. So where is the thought flow? Now from verses 11 to 25, you know, the main message of Lord Krishna was, the wise do not grieve. Na shochitum arhasi. The wise people deserve not to grieve. Why? Because the self is nitya. It's indestructible. It's eternal. So, Arjuna has this concern that if I go to war, I will kill people and I will also die, probably. So, what should I do? I'm very, very confused about my dharma. And we learned that his problem, the grief was not because somebody died. The grief was because my somebody died. That is why the grief is there, because people die all the time. And so that my somebody died, that is called moha, that this is mine, this is my, this is I, this is all called moha. And that delusion stems from ignorance. So therefore, Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, your real nature is the self. Not only your real nature, but everyone's nature is that one self. And that self cannot be destroyed. No matter, it cannot be cut, it cannot be dried, it cannot be wet, it cannot be burnt, it cannot be destroyed. You cannot do anything to that self. And therefore, you should not grieve. Now, death is something that's not very easy to take. Especially when somebody very close to us passes away, it can be a very, very hard thing. But that's where these verses, when we keep reflecting and keep reflecting and keep reflecting, they really, really hit home. Because our true nature is absolutely indestructible. It's untouched, unaffected. So Lord Krishna tells this to Arjuna. But it's as if Arjuna's not getting it. It's quite hard. It's quite hard to lose somebody very close to you. So Arjuna seems not to be getting it. So in verses 26 and 27, Lord Krishna says, okay, let us say that you think that the self is the jiva. So we know the real self is Atma, that pure awareness, consciousness. Let us say if you think the self is the jiva, even then you shouldn't grieve. Why is that? Because jatasya idruvo mrityu. That which is born will die. That which dies will be born again. That is the nature of the jiva. That is the nature of the soul. It transmigrates. It goes from one birth to another. So even then, you shouldn't grieve because it's unavoidable. Every jiva has to go through this cycle. When their prarabdha karma ends, not when you and I want, not when we will or when we desire. When the prarabdha karma ends, that jiva will leave the body and take up another body. And this is something we see all the time. We cannot avoid it. It will happen. It will happen to you. It will happen to me. It will happen to our loved ones. It will happen. We cannot avoid this fact of life. Therefore, Arjuna, even from this standpoint, why grieve? This is not only for humans. I was thinking about the virus, right? So the first variant of the virus, maybe it died, but it came back in another variant, isn't it? Came back in another form. And then again, it will go again, it will mutate and come back again. So jatasya idruvo mrityuhu for everything, not only for the jiva, but every single thing. It dies and then it will be born again in another way, in another form. And then it dies and then it will be born again. So therefore, Lord Krishna says, Arjuna, you don't deserve to grieve over this. Then it's as if Arjuna wants a little bit more. Give me some more. Give me some more. So in verse 28, Lord Krishna says, look, if you think that the self is the body, these 5 elements, avyaktadini, bhutani. If you think this self is these bhutas, even then you shouldn't grieve. Bhuta means elements. Because all it is, it's coming from unmanifest to manifest, and then it's going back to unmanifest. Just like a baby, from unmanifest, it becomes manifest, then it goes back to unmanifest. All bodies do this. Everything does this every day. We see it, right? Even in our own food, it's unmanifest, it's manifest, and then it goes back into unmanifest. And what to talk about this, which is made of food? So therefore, let that grief go. It may be painful, but think. Vedanta is all about thinking. What happens when someone passes away? The thinking goes out and the feeling becomes so much, right? But if we get into this habit of thinking and thinking and thinking, we will be able to really pause, understand, and appreciate. And that death will not be such a sad moment, but a celebration of the person's life. Grieving doesn't mean that we don't remember the person. Grieving just means we don't, we're not buried and trapped in sorrow. Of course, we remember the person, but we remember them with absolute love, respect, and we remember all the sacrifices that they've done for us. But we're just not wallowing in that pain, because that will bring us down. But we're walking with love. We're walking with the memory of love. We're walking with the memory of respect. That will bring us up and everybody else up. Then Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, I can understand why this might be difficult for you to get. Because this is such a wonder. And this is where we started, verse 29 last time. He said, this whole thing is a wonder. The first thing, ashcharya in verse 29 means wonder. When we see something, we cannot explain. This, first of all, this atma, this enam word means atma. This atma or this self is a wonder. That there is something in you and in me that's absolutely changeless. Did we ever think about that before? We probably never did. And if nobody told us that there's something like that there, we wouldn't even know. We wouldn't come to it. And even deeper, that changeless thing is untouched. It's untouched, completely untouched by anything. By whatever happens to the body, it's untouched. Whatever colors the mind, it's untouched. Now, that is such a wonder. That there is something in me that's changeless, that's untouched, that's awareness. What a wonder. So this self itself is a wonder. What to talk about those who realize this self? So the first line says, Ashcharyavat pashyati kashchid enam. So Ashcharyavat, full of wonder are those pashyati, those kashchid pashyati, those who see enam, this atma. Means those who realize this atma, wow, they are a wonder. To really realize this truth, that is a wonder that somebody can actually pursue this path. Isn't it? It's very difficult. It's not easy. They say that the path of realization is like a razor's edge. So for somebody to pursue this deeply, something that you cannot even see with your senses, something that you cannot even think of, something that you cannot even imagine, for someone to really go inward and pursue that, wow, that is so rare. That is a wonder. And the way that Jivan Mukta, when they realize the self, how they are, it's also a wonder. The natures of the Jivan Mukta, we'll see later, Sthita Prajna Lakshana. They're also wonder. Some of them are like children, balavat. Some of them are like intoxicated, unmattavat. Some of them are like ghosts, pishachavat. They're also quite a wonder. Their way of living and how they're able to just be in any circumstance, in any situation, they're able to calmly go through it. What a wonder. So the one who is able to really realize this truth, wow. And we've seen, in our Shastras, such great Mahatmas, our own Puja Gurudev, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji, all these Ramakrishna Paramahamsa Ji, like all of these Mahatmas, how amazing their lives were. What a wonder. We can't even comprehend. You take someone like Adi Shankaracharya Ji, in 32 years, how much he's done for our Shastra. That's a wonder. So he says, I don't blame you, because the ones who realize this self, they're a wonder. We can't explain them. Then, Ashcharyavat vadati tathaiva chanyaha. The second line, anyaha, the others, the really, really amazing others who are kashchit vadati, those who speak about this, they're ashcharya. They're also wonder. Tatha eva means, or even they, those others, those rare others who speak about this, they're a wonder. Now you please see the Guru, our Guru Parampara, right? Our Guru from Bhagavan Veda Vyasa and so forth. This Guru Parampara has realized the truth. To them, this world is a dream. It's apparent. This whole thing is a dream. There's nobody who's really bound. There's nobody who will really be free, because Atma is never bound, is never free. If you look at that snake in that rope, to them there is no snake. They only feel, see, live in the rope. For them who are ever reveling in the truth, for them to come to our level and tell us, yes, we see that you are bound. Yes, we see that you are troubled. They are beyond that. We're asking them, why is there a snake in the rope? They're saying, well, you see the snake, you explain it. I just see the rope. But out of their causeless compassion, they come to our level and they say, okay, you see that snake? You see that ego? Let me tell you all about it. And they write exorbitant shastras on this ego alone, about the creation of the world. They comment about it. They expound on it. Their causeless compassion, they talk about it. They make us understand it, even if they are very well beyond it. That is a great wonder. You know how to find a guru is Shrotriya, one who can communicate very well to the student's level and capacity, one who is Brahmanishta, who's established in this knowledge. To find a guru like Gurudev, that's so rare. That's so incredibly rare, because a lot of them just want to be. Why would they even talk? So that itself is a wonder. From where does that compassion come to tell us this message? That's a great wonder. We can't understand. Ashcharyavat chainam anya shrunoti. In the third line, what it says is anya, and the other ones, enam shrunoti. This, hearing this, ashcharyavat, those who hear this, they are also a wonder. I tell people all the time, whenever we have Zoom class and I open the class, I never know who's coming. It's a wonder, ashcharya. We don't know who's coming. Those who listen to this knowledge are also a wonder. Guruji often jokes, we have a Vedanta course in Sandipani Sadhanalaya, 2-year Vedanta course. And everybody always tells Guruji it's a great initiative. He says, I always wonder who's going to come. This Maya is so great. This packaging is so great. There's so much temptation out there. So many things to do out there. I wonder, still people are coming to learn Brahma Jnana. That is a great wonder. That is a wonder. Some people leave everything and just go. They just go. I was reading Swami Tapovan Maharaj's life, how much he ached for sannyasa. He just wanted to leave his home, but his parents had passed away, so he had to wait for his younger brother to settle down. And when he did, he left everything, just like that. He went to the Himalayas and he never came back down. At most, he would go to Rishikesh. What's such a wonder when we meet people like that, when we hear about people like that, everything they leave. And people used to write to Swami Tapovan Maharaj, "You're such a great orator, you're so handsome, you're well-to-do, it would be good for you to get married and you can take sannyasa later and enjoy life." But still he said no. So those rare ones who come to this knowledge, that is Ashcharya. When we were studying in Sandipni Sadhanalaya, people in India, in Mumbai area especially, you can understand that they would come to do this 2-year Vedanta course. It's quite near them, but still they didn't come. But we had people from Russia and Belgium and France, from various parts of the country, they want to come and learn this knowledge. That is a great wonder. That seeker must be appreciated in all aspects, that there's a drive to pursue self-knowledge. When this desire for the self arises in your heart and in my heart, that is the purest desire to ever come about. That is the desire of all desires. So if that desire has come, hold it, pursue it until it is fulfilled. These are also wonders. Then, what's also a wonder? Shrutva api enam. Those who are having heard this also, naveda kaschit, they are not able to get it. He's talking about us also. We come, we are a wonder, we listen to it, but having listened to it for so long, not getting it, that's also a wonder. How long will it take for us to get it? How many lives do we have to go through to get it? That's also a crazy wonder, isn't it? So Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, I don't blame you if you're having a hard time getting this, because it's Ashcharya. And there's a beautiful story in our Shastra that says, in all of our homes, every single one of our homes, there is a treasure of gold hidden by our ancestors. It's hidden. It's hidden under our floor. And every day we walk over it. We walk over it, but we don't know. And every day we're pursuing wealth, we're pursuing riches, we're pursuing all kinds of things because we don't know we have that treasure of gold. We just keep walking over it, every day walking over it, not knowing it's there. We keep going outside and pursuing everything and anything. Our rishis say that that treasure of gold is Atma, in your own body. That Atma is there. Every day it's there, every moment it's there, but we just brush it off. We just walk over it. We don't even go inward to pursue it. And that's why we pursue this world, because we don't know and are not aware of this treasure. That is a great wonder. The wonder of all wonders is not a wonder of the world, but it's out of the world. And that wonder is you. And the fact that it's you and it's me, and every day we still don't pursue it, that's a wonder. Or we have heard it, but we have not gotten it, that's a wonder. Because you can't even say it's the closest thing to us. It is us. So this is a great wonder. So every time, or at any time, if you feel like, oh, I have to take a trip, I want to see this sight, I want to hear this sound, just be silent. And that in itself is a wonder. So Lord Krishna tells this to Arjuna. You can just imagine how Arjuna's feeling. He's wonderstruck, right? So now in verse 30, Lord Krishna concludes this whole series. He says, Dehi nityam avadhyoyam.
Dehi nityam avadhyoyam.
Dehe sarvasya bharata.
Dehe sarvasya bharata.
Tasmat sarvani bhutani.
Tasmat sarvani bhutani.
Dattvam shochitum arhasi.
Natvam shochitum arhasi.
Dehi nityam avadhyoyam. Dehe sarvasya bharata. Tasmat sarvani bhutani. Dattvam shochitum arhasi. So what does he say here? He says, Ayam Dehi. This Dehi, this Atma, and where is this Atma? Sarvasya Dehe. It is in everyone's body. It is just one Atma, that same Atma in everyone. That Atma is how Nityam, it's eternal, and Avadhyaha. Avadhyaha means it's indestructible. O Bharata, O descender of Bharata, Tasmat, therefore, Natvam Shochitum Arhasi, you don't deserve to grieve Sarvani Bhutani, for any creature. So what does he say? This, the indweller in the body of everyone, is ever indestructible, O Bharata. And therefore, you should not grieve for any creature. So he's concluding this thought which we saw from verse 11, Ashochan anvashochastvam, where Lord Krishna said, you are grieving for those who don't deserve to be grieved. Why? Because they are the self. So from there, all the reasons that we saw, that the self is unborn, the self does not die, the self is all-pervading, it is indestructible, it is Sat, it is absolute reality, it is pure awareness, it is the subject, it is never the object. Because of all of these reasons we saw from verse 11, therefore, Arjuna, we cannot grieve. We don't deserve to grieve for anybody or anything, not even for ourselves. Because nothing can really happen to Atma. You are free. I don't know if I mentioned to you before, but Swami Tapovan Maharaj, our Param Guru, Gurudev's Guru, was dying. He was very sickly, and Gurudev wanted to bring him to Delhi. He was in Uttarakashi. And he said, why? There are no doctors. I mean, there's no death in Delhi or what? There's no death in Delhi that you have to take me to Delhi? I'm sure there's death there. So Swami Tapovan Maharaj refused to go anywhere. And he said, for the last 60 years or so, Mr. Death has been waiting for my interview. And I've refused him a couple of times. It's about time I face him, don't you think? So, fearless. He's like ready. Because he had that knowledge of the self and was centered on it. So now Lord Krishna concludes this portion. But Arjuna still needs a little bit more. He needs more convincing. He's like you and me. We learned that the Atma is the self, but we're like, but why do I still have to fight? I still don't get it. Arjuna's like that also. He still needs more convincing. So now what Lord Krishna does is from verse 31 to 33, he tells him This is why you should fight based on dharma. So the primary reason is you are Atma. Nothing can happen to you. But even if you look at the dharma standpoint, this is why you should fight. So now Lord Krishna's message is to Arjuna. Let us read that. Swadharmamapi cha vekshya
Swadharmamapi chavekshya
navikampitum
navikampitumarhasi
dharmyadhiyuddhat shreyonyat
dharmyadhiyuddhat shreyonyat
kshatriyasya na vidyate
kshatriyasya na vidyate
swadharmamapi cha vekshya navikampitum arhasi dharmyadhiyuddhat shreyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate. So very beautifully, Lord Krishna comes to Arjuna's level. And that is the beauty of the teacher, always coming to the student's level. And in this way, Bhagavad Gita is a very unique type of scripture, because almost in all of the other scriptures we see, when a student approaches the Guru, first the Guru will give dharma. First the Guru will say, okay, do this karma, perform this selfless action, perform this seva. Then when the student gets a little bit purified, then the teacher will give that jnana of Brahma. But in the Bhagavad Gita, we find that it's the opposite. First, Lord Krishna gives Brahma jnana. Arjuna wasn't even asking for it, but he gives the highest knowledge because he wanted to get to the root of the problem. Then now he's also coming to the level of Arjuna's dharma. So this is also, when we study the Bhagavad Gita, not only what it says, how we can apply it, but also how Lord Krishna teaches Arjuna is a great lesson. He says, Swadharmam api cha avekshya. Even looking at your swadharma, looking at yourself as the Atma, even looking at yourself as Atma, and even looking at your swadharma, navikam pitum arhasi. You shouldn't waver. Vikam pitum. Vikam pitum means to shake. You shouldn't waver. Why? He says, dharmyad hi yuddhat ksheyaha anyat. Anyat, other than ksheyaha, higher than. So higher than this dharmyat yuddhat, higher than this righteous war. There's nothing higher than this righteous war for you. For whom? Kshatriyasya na vidyate. There's no thing higher for a kshatriya like you than this righteous war. So if we look at the translation, further looking at thine own duty, thou oughtest not to waver, for there's nothing higher for a kshatriya than a righteous war. So first we look at the word swadharma. What does this word swadharma mean? Swadharma means your own duty and disposition. This word dharma has many, many meanings. If you look at the dictionary, it's multi-meanings. But when we look at the Gita, we have to see the meaning in every context. So sometimes dharma means that which integrates. Sometimes it means duty. Sometimes it can also mean values. So here in Swadharmam Api, it means your duty and your disposition. Looking at this, you should not waver. So here, I'm going to read a bit of Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayanandaji's commentary because it's very beautiful and makes us understand the mental temperament of Arjuna. It says here, Kshatriyas is the quality of his inner mental constitution. Kshatriya, a warrior, is the quality of his inner mental constitution. he has the required physical enthusiasm, moral fire, intellectual alacrity, and heroic daring that make it impossible to rest contented in quiet study and contemplation without getting agitated tremendously when he finds the unhappy lot of his country or people, or when he detects that the sacred Aryan culture has been threatened by imperceptible un-Aryan invasions. So this is the mindset of a Kshatriya. So remember these 4 Varnas, and we will study this in chapter 4 when it comes. Lord Krishna says, I created these 4 Varnas: Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Brahmana is that mindset of study, of discipline, of a visionary. That's the kind of mindset a Brahmana has. Kshatriya mindset is a warrior mindset. Means a Kshatriya cannot tolerate injustice. They cannot. If they see something wrong, they'll call the cops. It's just so that everything will be okay. You know, they will really stand up. They cannot sit. Kshatriyas are the type of person, if they see something in the world, they cannot sit. They feel like they have to do something. That's a temperament. The Vaishya temperament is they have to make money. Anything that they see, how to make money, how to make money, how to make this investment, how to make this work. That's a Vaishya temperament. They have that ability to make things really grow. And there's a beauty in each temperament. Shudra temperament is they have that ability to support anybody, because they don't want to take their own initiative. They'll support anybody who needs help. What do you need? What do you need? Can I help you? They will just help. So Arjuna's Swadharma, his own duty according to his mental temperament, is that he's a Kshatriya. That's his Swadharma. So if that is your Swadharma, you can't waver from that. Because that, being a warrior, your duty then is to protect the country, to protect the place where you're in, because you have the capacity to do it. Number one, you have the mental temperament to do it. And we all know Arjuna has that mental temperament. From Mahabharata itself, we know he has that temperament. Number two is that you have the capacity to do it. You were trained your whole life to do it. So even looking at your Swadharma, that is what you're born to do. Like this, everybody is born with certain innate tendencies. Their vasanas, which expresses their Swadharma. And it is our duty to exhaust those vasanas which show or expresses our Swadharma in a selfless way. And only then our minds will be purified. So he says, just look at your Swadharma. Looking at this duty, navikampitum arhasi. You can't shake. You can't swerve. And he says here, kshatriyasya yuddhat dharmyat hi anyaha shreyaha na vidyate. This war, now this dharmya in the second line comes from the word dharma. And that dharmya means full of dharma. This yuddha, this war, is a righteous war. It's not an unrighteous war, it's a righteous war. Because we saw in the Mahabharata, they tried to make peace. The Pandavas tried to make peace with the Kauravas. They even settled with 5 villages, but the Kauravas, specifically Duryodhana, said no. They even sent Bhagavan Sri Krishna to make peace, but they said no. So therefore, you tried to make peace at all costs, but it didn't work. And not to mention, these Kauravas are atatayins. So if you remember in verse 1.36, so if you go back to 136, it is said that they are atatayin. And the definition of atatayin means a felon. A felon is one who sets fire to a house of another person. And this, the palace of wax, we saw in Mahabharata. Who poisons a person, poisoning of Bhima. who with sword in hand fall upon him to kill someone who's unarmed. So we saw this many, many times in the battlefield. Someone who steals wealth, their kingdom was stolen. Someone who stole land, same thing. The wealth, land was stolen. Someone who has stolen or taken someone's wife. So we saw this incident with Draupadi. So these, the Kauravas, are atatayins. They committed all of these mistakes. And in our Shastra, there's a verse that says, Gurum va bala vridhau va brahmanam va bahushrutam atatayinam amayantam hanyad eva vicharayan. Means a person could be your guru. A person could be a brahmana, somebody who's well learned, somebody who's very young, somebody who's very old. But if they're an atatayin, then they must be defeated. They must be defeated. So therefore, this war is a righteous war. Because you're against atatayins, you have to defeat them. If you let them live, if you let them keep going in society, that is adharma. You're a kshatriya, your duty is to protect. They're atatayins, and if you don't fight, adharma will prevail. They will keep going and going and going. Therefore, Arjuna, even looking at this from Swadharma standpoint, you should still fight. You should still go for this war. Then he further goes to say, there's other reasons also. Let's look at it more and more so that you really understand. Now, this is the beauty of Lord Krishna. He's going deeper and deeper for Arjuna. So Arjuna can really open his eyes and see why he's got to fight this war. So verse number 32. Yadrichaya chopapannam.
Yadrichaya chopapannam.
Swargadvaramapavritam.
Swargadvaramapavritam.
Sukhinah kshatriyah partha.
Sukhinah kshatriyah partha.
Labhante yuddhamidrisham.
Labhante yuddhamidrisham.
Yadrichaya chopapannam. Svargadvaramapavritam. Sukhinah kshatriyah partha. Labhante yuddhamidrisham. What he says here is Sukhinaha Kshatriyaha, means these fortunate Kshatriyas. What happens to them? Labhante yuddham idrisham. These fortunate Kshatriyas, they gain this kind of war. What do you mean they gain this kind of war? They gain this opportunity for war. Why? Why are they fortunate? Because Yadrichaya cha upapannam svargadvaramapavritam, means yadrichaya, it just came to them. It just came without it asking. Yadrichaya upapannam. Upapannam means it came. Yadrichaya, itself it came. Without asking, it came. And this kind of war, svargadvaram apavritam, it opens up the door to heaven. So it says here, happy indeed are the Kshatriyas, O Partha. And he calls Arjuna here Partha. This is important. He calls him Partha, who are called to fight in such a battle that comes of itself as an open door to heaven. Now, what a wonderful thing. See, Lord Krishna is really, really going to the mind of Arjuna, because he, in the earlier verses, if you remember in chapter 2, he says, how am I going to fight my gurus? I can't fight my gurus. And if I fight them and I win, everything I win will be stained with blood. Rudhira pradigdhan, he says. Then he also says, if I fight, I'll go to hell. I'll commit sin, I'll go to hell, I'll be, guilty of evil deeds. So Lord Krishna is addressing each of those arguments that he had. If you want to see those thoughts or lamentations, they're in verses 4 to 6. So these specific lamentations that Arjuna had, this is what Lord Krishna is addressing. So he says here, now first of all, for a warrior, when they get this kind of war, when they get this opportunity to defend their country, to fight for their country, this is a rare opportunity. This is something that they've put their lives for. I mean, what does a soldier do? Why do they train? Why do they go through so much practice, abhyasa? Why do they go through so much of that physical, exercise, physical training? Why do they do it? Because they're building themselves, they're building their capacity to face whatever has to come. They're waiting for that chance to be able to defend and fight for their country. So when that opportunity comes, that's so golden, because everything that a warrior has trained for, they can actually now exhibit. They can actually now put into use. So Lord Krishna tells Arjuna, this yadrichaya, this came to you. And this is a chance for the gates, the doors of heaven to be opened, because you will get such merit from actually being a true kshatriya in fighting this war. So you are so fortunate that you are getting this opportunity. And in Mahabharata, what we see is once, Kunti Devi, she went to Sri Krishna and she said, you please tell this message to Arjuna and Bhima, because she knew that they were going to be the leaders of the war. So she said, you tell this message to them. Etad dhananjayo vacho nityodyukto vrikodara yadartam kshatriya sute tasya kalo yam agataha. This is what Kunti Devi tells. This is so wonderful. She says, tell my Dhananjaya, Arjuna, and Vrikodara, wolf-bellied one, tell Bhima that for which Kshatriya mothers have given birth, that time, tasya kalaha, that time has come. Oh, look at Kunti Devi's attitude. That for which I gave birth to my sons, that time has come. So let them go. And this was the strength of our Kshatriya mothers. It is said that for Bhagat Singh, his mother, when he was going to die eventually, and so his mother came to him in prison and she said, what are you seeing? What do you see in this state? And he says, I see my mother, who once told me, apparently his mother once told him, that when you die for your country one time, you live 100 times. He said, I see my mother, who told me that when you die for your country one time, you live 100 times. This was the mentality. When you are doing something, when you are fighting for that great cause, that is a wonderful opportunity. And it just came. In our life, we also have yadrichaya cha upapanna. We also have things that just come. We don't expect it. It just comes. Now, what do? We cannot run away. Whatever just comes, it is because of our karma only. It came. Now face it. That's also our dharma. Our dharma is nowhere in our Gita, let's say, run away. Every single place in the Gita will say, face it, stand up, do your dharma. It just came. I didn't expect it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it, but it's there. It is there because it's meant to be there. Now, the only thing we can do is accept it, get up and do our dharma. That's exactly what Lord Krishna tells Arjuna. So this is actually a very, very useful opportunity for you. It's a chance for you to get more merit and to use all the skills you've been training all your life. You did so much tapasya. Now go for it. So slowly, slowly, Arjuna is getting convinced. Arjuna is getting convinced. Now we will see one more in this line of thought. Verse number 33. Atha chetvamimam dharmyam
अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यम्
Sangramam na karishyasi
सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि
tataswadharmam kirtim cha
ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च
hitva papamavapsyasi.
हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि
Atha chetvamimam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi tataswadharmam kirtim cha hitva papamavapsyasi. So this is the line in the argument of dharma, the last verse in that line. So we will just, for a brief moment, just dwell on it. And then we will see more next time. He says, Atachet, if, right, Tvam imam dharmyam sangramam na karishyasi. If you, this imam, this sangramam, this war, which is dharmya, which is very righteous, na karishyasi. If you don't do it, what will happen? Tataha, then papam avapsyasi, you will actually gain sin if you don't do this. Why? Hitva, having left your swadharma, having left what your swadharma is, having left your fame, your kirti, you will get sin if you don't do this war. So he says, but if you will not fight this righteous war, then having abandoned your own duty and fame, you shall incur sin. In our Shastra, sin is of two types. One is the sin where if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, that is called sin. I don't do what I'm supposed to do. The second type of sin is that I do what I'm not supposed to do. That is also sin, right? So when I don't do what is supposed to be done, that is called pratyavaya. I don't do what is supposed to be done. It is the sin of omission. I do what I'm not supposed to do, that is the sin of commission. So in this case, it's sin of omission. What I'm supposed to do, I'm not doing. There you will get also papa. And he said, leaving your dharma. Some people, say, so what? So what if he's a kshatriya? And so what if he doesn't fight? When we don't follow our natural inclinations, our natural tendencies, more agitations will incur. This Swadharma is really, really important because everyone has these inclinations. A child may have very artistic inclinations, very artistic. But then you tell that child, I think you should be a businessman. That child will go through so much suffering because so much agitations will be there. Their inclination is for art, for artistic things, and then you're telling them to be a business person. Their life will be full of agitation. More and more agitations will build up. You tell somebody who wants to pursue business, you tell that person, oh, you have to be a doctor, because in our family, in our tradition, everybody was a doctor. They will go through a lot of suffering, more agitations will build up because that's not them. They'll have such a hard time. So in the same way, it's not only that Arjuna will commit that sin of omission, that what he's supposed to he's not doing, but it will also cause him so much more agitation. If he thinks that he can run away to the Himalayas, sometimes people say this, when they're tired, they're like, I just want to go take sannyas. I just want to leave everything. Oh, so many more agitations will come because that person's not ready. They don't have that inclination. You can't force them. Therefore, it is extremely important to know what our Swadharma is and to use that in a selfless way so we can exhaust the vasanas. And this is precisely what Gurudev says. Every living creature, his commentary, I'll just read this bit. Every living creature has taken up its form and has come into the world of objects for one great purpose, which is to gain an exhaustion of its existing mental impressions. The bundle of vasanas with which an individual has arrived in this life in his or her incarnation is called Swadharma. This is what is said. So if he doesn't, it's not only that, okay, it's a sin of omission. You're not following your tendencies. You're going to get more agitated. So here we will stop this thought flow for today. I'll just review and then we will have any questions or thoughts to be shared. So what we have seen today is that Arjuna and Lord Krishna have this beautiful dialogue where Lord Krishna takes different standpoints. He says, if you are the self, you should not grieve. If you're the jiva, also then you shouldn't grieve. If you're the body, you take the self to be the body, then you shouldn't grieve. And if you don't get it, I can understand, Arjuna, because it's such a wonder. This whole thing is a wonder. The one who realizes the truth is a wonder. The one who speaks, teaches this truth is a wonder. The one who listens to it, us, is a wonder. The one who listens to it and doesn't get it, us, is a wonder also. This whole thing is a real wonder. But then in verse 30, he says, summarizing everything, if you really look at it deeply, you shouldn't grieve. But if you're still questioning, if you're still thinking, I'll tell you, O Arjuna, from the standpoint of dharma. He says, from the standpoint of dharma, also you shouldn't grieve. Having considered your swadharma as a warrior, as a kshatriya, for a kshatriya, there is no greater war than this. This is the purpose for which you have been given birth. And if you do this, the doors of heaven, the gates of heaven are open to you. And if you don't do it, then you will not be exhausting your vasanas. And besides that, more adharma will come up in the world and you will not fulfill your dharma as a kshatriya. Therefore, Arjuna, get up and do your dharma. The Arjuna is still a little confused, not 100%. Lord Krishna will even now talk from the worldly standpoint. And that we will see next week. So we'll see the closing prayer, then we'll share a few thoughts, and anyone who has questions also can ask. Okay? Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.